Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Professional Overrun podcast with your host Tony Malika. This podcast is sponsored by The Real Shot. Today I'm joined here with Jason Brenic from Piscifun. He's going to be our special guest going over a lot of the products today from Piscifun, and we're just going to chat some fishing. At the end of the podcast, we'll wrap it up with my analysis of the St. Johns River Bass event for fantasy fishing. So just wanted to welcome everyone to the show and introduce myself. I'm Tony Malika. I'm the host of the show. The show will be every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Live here on Facebook, and then going forward, we will also be live on YouTube as well. So make sure you go and give the Professional Overrun Podcast Facebook page a like. We're all, like I said, YouTube as well. You can go subscribe to that channel if that's a better platform for you in the future. And then after the shows are done being run live, we'll also be on iTunes and Spotify for your traditional podcast listing. So a little bit about the show. We're just going to talk anything fishing, anything I really want to talk about going forward on any type of fishing topics. We'll cover a lot of different species. I'm primarily a bass fisherman, so that'll probably be the main focus, but we'll definitely be getting a lot of other species talk in with many different guests going forward. So I've been in the fishing, I guess you could say the fishing industry the last 3 or 4 years. I help run a pro staff for a company out of Missouri and really got into tournament fishing about 4 years ago, and it's just kind of gone from there. So by day, insurance agent, and by evening, husband and fisherman. So going forward there, I just want to introduce my guest, Jason Brenic. He's the U.S. Director for Piscifun. So if you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you're about.
Yeah. First of all, Tony, I'd like to thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
you coming in.
Super exciting. It's always cool to see someone get started with a new podcast. Podcasts are growing in popularity at an insane clip right now. So great time to get on the board. As Tony mentioned, my name is Jason Brenic. I am the United States Director for Piscifun Fishing. And we are an e-commerce fishing company. We're based out of Wisconsin. And I'm looking forward to telling you guys a little bit more about it as we kind of jump into this podcast here.
Excellent. Well, again, I appreciate you coming on. I think what most people probably want to know, and I even have pronounced it wrong talking with you, what is with the name Piscifun? How do you pronounce it? Where did it come from? Let's chat on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to the name, essentially it's just a combination of two different things. So you have PC, which obviously means fish in Latin. Okay. The PSCI, and then you have fun, and that's just what it is. So basically the goal of the company when we started this name was to make fishing fun again. Okay. And the premise behind that name was that we noticed that the fishing industry was starting to become very expensive. And what tends to happen in that scenario is that a lot of people are no longer able to participate. And so basically the goal was to bring fishing back to being affordable and making it fun again. And that's kind of where that name came.
Awesome.
Easy way to pronounce it, I always tell people, Reese's Pieces, PC Fun. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So.
Excellent. That works. So how long has Piscifun been around?
So they actually got started in 2013. Okay. And we really grew in the last 3 years a lot. But back in 2013, basically what it was is a gentleman named Ben and Peter, who were both friends. One of them actually owns a manufacturing facility in China. Okay. So it's a Chinese-owned company, which is very unique. And as you know, e-commerce is huge, and it's only getting larger. So basically, these gentlemen both enjoyed fishing. One had the ability to manufacture, so they came together and said, you know what, why don't we start a company? Why don't we do something and take advantage of this new e-commerce market and kind of be one of the first to push in that direction with fishing goods by making them affordable again for, the everyday angler. And that's kind of like the story of the startup and where it came from.
So when they first started, did they just market to China, or did they instantly be like, hey, we see there's a need for this in the U.S. market? Did they instantly go worldwide into the U.S., or was it just China at first?
So oddly enough, it's funny, so much manufacturing is done in China, and not only for us, but multiple different brands in the industry, in the hunting industry. I mean, things we use every day, so many things are made in China because their manufacturing, contrary to popular belief, is actually quite good. And it's really changed over the last 10 years drastically. So there actually is very little fishing in China. So it's pretty funny considering how much stuff is made there. So what we did right off the bat is we immediately marketed to our largest market, and that was the United States. And then beyond that, we also went into Australia, Europe, India. So a lot of different areas right off the bat. We've actually sold to 17 different countries at this point.
Okay. So, and their goal is always to stay e-commerce through their website and Amazon. They don't ever want to get into stores just to keep that overhead down.
Yeah. So what we've started to do now is we're excuse me, we're starting to step a little bit into going to the stores, but what we're doing is we're going to the small tackle dealers.
Okay.
So essentially, the reason we're able to keep things affordable for anglers, it's not because of the materials in the reel. A lot of these reels are made with the same materials as a lot other large brands. But what we do is we skip that middleman markup. There's such a great markup when you go into a box store. So staying e-commerce, instead of, taking that money and keeping our prices a little higher, what we do is we pass those savings right on to the customers.
Yeah.
So for the most part, we'll probably stay e-commerce focused. But that being said, we understand that there's a desire with a new brand for people to take it and put their hands on that reel and
absolutely.
feel it.
They want to see it before they order it.
Yep. You want to feel how smooth it is. You want to see how strong it is. And so what we've begun doing is starting to reach out to small tackle dealers who don't require those massive margins, so we can still keep those prices low for our customers.
Okay. Awesome. So I know earlier when we were chatting before the show, you had mentioned you've been with them for, 4 or 5 years now?
About 5 years now.
How did that partnership come about? How did you run across them? Did you pick up something online and say, hey, I like this, and you reached out to them, or how did that go?
It was actually a stroke of pure luck. So I've always been active, at least for the last 10 years or so, in tournament fishing, and I've always been very active on social media and sharing things of different brands, sponsors, things like that.
Yeah.
One of their marketing folks from China actually messaged me on Facebook.
Really?
And said, we're a new brand. We're looking to expand into the U.S. We're interested in maybe having you do a little bit of help in design and marketing and that sort of thing. Honestly, initially I thought it was, just a scam. I didn't believe it. I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's a million people you could reach out to. Why'd you reach out to me? And so at that point, what happened then is I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you send me some of your products? I'll take a look at them. And if they're, legitimate, then maybe we can talk a little bit.
Awesome.
And lo and behold, here I get a package in the mail within, a week or so, and here's 15 reels in a box. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they sent everything.
Yeah. They're
like
just
one of everything, basically,
yep,
or what?
Yep. One of everything. At the time, I think they had 5 products.
Okay.
Super brand new. And they said, well, test them out. Let us know. Initially, I tested them out, and I honestly wasn't a fan of them. I told them, I said, the tolerances are off. I don't really like the products. There was 2 out of the 5, different things that I actually enjoyed. And it was super odd. I went back and I said, you know what? I really am not interested, unless you guys can make some drastic changes.
Yeah.
And that was what caught me, because within about a month and a half, I had those same models back with the exact changes that I requested.
Really?
And then I started to think like, wow, this is serious. These guys are serious. And it just kind of built from there. It went to part-time work and, doing a little bit of pro staff stuff here and there with them.
Yeah.
And then it grew to a full-time position.
Because you were in the trucking industry before this, right, with JXE?
Yep. I was an HR business partner with JXE. I was there for 4 years. So, I went to school for business, and here I end up working with a fishing company.
So how long have you been with them full-time?
I've been full-time for coming up on 2 years now, so about 18 months.
2 years, okay.
Yep.
Awesome. So I know you brought a handful of products here. I've used some of them, and I guess I can speak to being the entry level. I used it this last year. I used the original Phantom baitcaster just because I wanted to try to get down flipping for bass with a left-handed reel, but I didn't want to go spend $100, $200 each on 2-3 reels to get used to it.
Sure.
So I'd pick some of those up, great entry level to be able to learn, and I've now since switched to just flipping left-handed, and they've been great products, and I've passed on many people say, hey, if you want some entry level, that's where you want to go because they're better. I mean, even when you brought in this Phantom X here today, I mean, even this compared to the original Phantom, you can tell the tolerances are better, and it's just a better product than what it was, and the price point's better than the original Phantom, right?
Yeah, it is better.
Yeah.
Yep. So when it comes to the products, when we first started fishing reels, this was our bread and butter. This is kind of where we got our start. But the long-term goal for us is to expand in the fishing products to really a one-stop shop for folks online.
Okay.
So, recently we've come out with, we have braid, we have a lot of different fishing tools, we have pliers, we even have things like this here. You'll see this is a tackle bag. So a lot of different products, a lot of different things. And as you mentioned, a lot of it is at that entry level pricing. And, the reason we're targeting that is because there's a lot more folks out there who can afford to buy something in that $50 to $100 range, as opposed to the gentleman who goes out and buys a $350 baitcaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I can't afford 20 of those. It's just not in my budget.
I have one Daiwa skis, and it's a slippery slope, but I cannot afford it. So,
and not obviously those are great reels. They're phenomenal reels, and there's a lot of great companies that make them. But what it boils down to is, again, bringing that affordability back to the sport of fishing and allowing the everyday Joe to go out there and not only buy an affordable reel, but we're putting that quality into the reels as well.
Absolutely. So go through the reels that you brought with us today. I know you said that's the brand new musky reel. Probably could even throw some big swim baits on it if you wanted for bass fishing. But just picking that up earlier, that thing is a piece of art. I mean, it's a nice reel for the price point you guys have it at.
Yeah, so this is a reel that's 100% aluminum frame and side plates.
Okay.
So that in itself kind of tells you the quality. And now this is a sub $100 reel with a 100% aluminum body. It comes with brass gearing, and as I mentioned, it is marketed towards the musky angler.
Yep.
But that being said, it comes in a 5.9 to 1 gear ratio as well as an 8.1 to 1. Comes with a power handle as well as a standard handle.
Okay.
So essentially what a lot of guys are using this for, at least bass guys, are throwing Alabama rigs, throwing big swim baits, things like that. The nice deep spool, when you're spooled up with 20-pound fluorocarbon and you're bombing an A-rig as far as you can.
Oh, yeah.
That low 5.9 to 1 gear ratio gives you that torque you need to bring that thing in, and you're not breaking your wrist all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I said, muskies, it's great for muskies. But it's funny enough, this reel was actually developed in San Francisco Bay in saltwater.
Okay.
So they said, we want a muskie reel. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to find a saltwater guide, and we're going to send him this reel. And if he can beat it up for 10 months in saltwater and catch those big fish, it'll take on any muskie. So is that
all sealed and approved for saltwater as well then?
All sealed, all approved for saltwater.
So your brackish water, your red fishermen, all that kind of stuff, that might be a reel for them as well.
Absolutely, yep. Redfish, snook. And the big thing they always tell people with saltwater, because everyone says, well, is it saltwater approved? Yes, absolutely. Just make sure you rinse it off when you buy it.
Absolutely. Don't dip it and then just let it sit on the shelf.
I've seen guys that buy a $600 pen, and they're like, I don't know what happened. It seized up on me. Well, you didn't rinse it off.
Yeah, yeah. But make sure you clean that up a little.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Sub $100 musky reel, aluminum frame. That's a great reel.
Awesome.
The Phantom X, as you mentioned earlier, this reel, this is the red one. This is the 7.6 to 1.
Yep.
But this one also comes in an orange and blue model. And basically what we did is we color-coded it to the gear ratio.
Okay.
So a lot of times when you're out bass fishing and, you got 15 rods on your deck in a tournament, you look down and immediately that visual identifier of the color kind of allows you, okay, there's my flipping rod, there's my swim bait rod. So we have a 6.3 to 1 and a 5.3 to 1.
Okay.
And so this is like your ideal.
And that one's the 7?
This is 7.6. Okay. Yep. So this is your ideal entry-level casting reel. So for your guy who's just getting started, especially if you're getting started in tournaments, we know it costs a lot of money to lay the deck with 15 reels.
Yeah.
So this reel comes in at $55.99. Okay. And so it's affordable. And it has multiple gear ratios, allowing you to basically kind of outfit your entire deal with this model.
So what did you guys change? Maybe speak to how you guys changed up from the original Phantom to the Phantom X, because I know I mentioned that earlier and people might be wondering.
Yeah.
What was the big difference between the Phantom and the Phantom X?
So the original Phantom was made of 100% carbon. So that made it a super duper light reel, right? And you have your two sets of guys. You have your guys that want something that's extremely light, but then you have your guys that want something rigid and durable, right? And so a graphite framed casting reel in that same model was our in-between factor that we could get to. Now, the reason you see the major price difference, there's actually two. So one, the original Phantom was a dual braking casting reel, so that's going to add to the cost. And then obviously a carbon frame is going to be more expensive than graphite as well. So we upgraded the braking, the centrifugal brakes on the inside of this reel.
Okay.
And yeah, again, the cost reduction really just came from the change in the material. So we tightened up a lot of tolerances.
So drag system's all still the same and everything?
Yep, drag is all the same. It's a carbon drag system.
Okay.
And what we do, which is different than a lot of companies, is we really like to use an extended carbon handle. So, when you're flipping or you're using a reel with a high gear ratio, what you really want is leverage, because you don't have the torque.
Yeah.
So this extended handle, every time you get a good turn in, you're really getting that fish up out of cover. Yeah. Whether you're frogging,
and that's a
flipping,
100 millimeter handle, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know a lot of other reels that I have, they came with a 90 millimeter, and I instantly upgraded them to 100.
Yep. So we try to give you that upgrade right off the bat.
Point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This guy we have here, this spinning reel came out just this past year. We have an original Honor, and this is the Honor XT.
Okay.
So what we did is the original Honor only came in a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. This one, we bumped up the speed to a 6.2. The one that I'm holding here is a 1000 model, more for panfish. Yeah. So this one, we kept the 5.2 for this one because you're not really doing a lot of blazing speed things targeting bluegills. But, so this is the Honor XT. Again, graphite, 6.2 to 1 gear ratio, and this is also a carbon drag system, and this one comes in at about $45.99.
Okay,
so,
and you guys have level up from there and down from there, correct?
Yep, so we try to cover the full range, and so I don't have it here with me right now, but our other reel is the Carbon X. That one retails for $72.99.
Okay.
And that is, again, a full carbon body from the name. And the awesome thing about that reel is it's great for finesse fishing. It's super light. It's got a killer drag system, and you can really fish it all day doing drop shotting, shaky heads, tubes, and stuff like that without getting that fatigue. The beautiful thing about these reels, again, I think it's the value. That's probably the biggest selling point. It's the value. So you can buy a reel for $72.99 that if you compared apples to apples with the same material and maybe a different brand, you would see a 1/3 to 2/3 price increase for the same material.
Absolutely.
So it's really the value proposition that what we bring to the table.
Yeah. So I know like this 1,000 size here, this looks like it'd be real popular in the ice fishing realms. Am I remembering it? You guys came out with an ice fishing specific reel though, correct?
Yep. So we're starting to dabble in ice fishing a little bit, and we're looking to grow that in the near future.
Okay.
The reality is ice fishing is becoming cool. Ice fishing was always the guy sitting on the bucket in his blaze orange freezing and not really doing much. Well, with the introduction of new units from Garmin that are allowing you to scan under the ice, it's really evolving. And so we want to kind of be part of that. So we did develop an ice reel that features an extended stem, a collapsible handle, and a carbon drag system.
Okay.
And it's extremely affordable at $27.99. So that's what we came out with this year. Next year, we are looking expanding into inline and possibly even ice fishing rods. So definitely on the horizon for us to get more into that.
So when you went back to them and told them, hey, we need a reel specifically for ice fishing, did they look at you like you were crazy? Like, what, you sit on ice and fish through it? Like, what was their reaction when you said that?
So, they're really well educated. So they do a lot of research to understand how we fish here. So they weren't too surprised, but it's actually funny. I had them visit here in Wisconsin just a month ago. So I had a couple of product developers and actually the CEO visit.
Okay.
And so what I did was I decided to take them out, and we took them out ice fishing for the first time, and they had an absolute blast, but they also had that, normal natural fear when you first set foot on a frozen lake. So it was pretty cool, and it allowed them to get a little bit of a better understanding of what we want and how we want it and why we want those things.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So obviously we've gone through some of the reels. Sitting behind us, we've got one of the rods that you guys have.
Yeah.
Let's chat on that one a little bit.
So this is our Piscifun Serpent series.
Okay.
So this is an IM7 carbon blank. This blank specifically is an unfinished blank, so you can feel that it has almost a little bit of a ridge on it because it's not a finished blank.
You can feel that,
one that was just done for style and again for price. So you could do the sanding and the finishing and increase the price. We thought, why add that the unnecessary costs to the rod? Fuji guides, so very high quality guides, and it comes down to an alien grip, and it's nice because it's got a nice ergonomic curve in there, so it sits perfectly into your palm when you're holding the rod. And then we got a golf style grip here. These rods retail for about $85. Again, truly about $180 rod if you would compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
This was our first crack at a mid-level series rod, and now we're starting to look into developing even higher levels into that IM8 carbon, really getting into that maybe tournament level style rod. So
and this comes in a 1-piece and a 2-piece, correct?
Correct,
Both casting and spinning?
Yep. So one of the things that we have when we work with entry-level pricing is there's a lot of guys who don't have a boat.
Yeah.
And so they're traveling by car or bicycle or whatever means they are to get to the water. So those 2 pieces obviously help in the transportation. And then we also do offer this in a casting series as well, both in 1-piece and 2-piece. So there's 8 different models in the casting series and 4 different models in the spinning series that they can choose from.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for the price point, I mean, all the pieces on it look like they're well done. I mean, like you said, Fuji guides on there. And there's other brands like 13 Fishing. A lot of their entry-level rods, they aren't finished. You can feel them. They've got the ridges and the bumps on them and everything. So it's not like you're doing something different than other companies. But I think the price point's the big one. This, you said, was the only series you have right now is the Serpent, correct?
So we do have another casting series, and that's the Torrent series.
Okay.
And that one's an IM6 blank. So that's like your true entry-level guys who maybe are buying their first casting rod or they want an affordable option. And that's a great series as well. But this was our first step into spinning.
Okay.
So we're looking at possibly expanding. I probably shouldn't say this, but we're looking at possibly going into a Carbon X series.
Okay.
And obviously that's our higher-end spinning reel, so you can expect a higher quality rod under that name as well.
So these from what I've seen online and looking at them from people I know that have them, it seems like they're more geared toward bass guys. And obviously, we just talked about a reel that was meant for musky guys. Are you guys developing, or is there talks of a musky specific rod series at all? Or
so one of the hangups that an e-commerce company will have is shipping, right?
Yeah.
And so that length of that rod is a big thing for us. So we do want to expand, but the big thing is bass fishing is hands down by far the most lucrative part of the sport to be a part of as a company. And so we're going to continue to kind of expand into that area first. But we do have intentions of going into walleye specific, panfish specific, even saltwater specific rods into the future. So
okay, awesome. And then the braid here, is that the only type of line you guys make? Do you make a mono? Do you make a fluorocarbon at all? Or
Yep. So this is the braid that we offer. We've had this out for about 2 years now. We are currently working with manufacturers for both mono and fluorocarbon.
Okay.
So that'll be something that you'll probably see within the next 6 months or so. And we're just going to continue expanding. Obviously there's a lot of super lines on the market.
Yeah.
There's some that are more abrasive. There's some that are more slick and smooth. So we're going to kind of follow that trend and go into those different specialties for those different types of lines.
And for this braid here, is that a 4-strand, 8-strand braid? Where are we running at that one?
This is a 4-strand braid.
Okay.
It's going to be much thinner than you would typically see for other brands.
Okay.
But as far as quality goes, you can compare it to large brands like a Power Pro or a Suffix. It's very similar in material to those.
And do you guys run the gamut weight-wise on that all the way?
Yeah, we've got them all the way up to 150-pound braid, all the way down to a 4-pound braid. So.
Okay. And do they just come in the small spools, or do you guys offer them in bulk at all?
Nope, we actually offer spools all the way up to, I think they go to 1,000 yards right now.
Okay.
So,
cool.
But yeah, lots of different options when it comes to that. Tools. This is an aluminum set of pliers. As far as the tools go, we have a lot of different sets of pliers. We have some specific for saltwater, some that are a little bit larger. But these, specifically feature cutting blades on here for braid and different lines. We've got some crimping options, and then we've also got a split ring option here on the nose. Yeah. So we offer quite a few different tools. And there's a lot of accessories. I mean, we offer dry bags. We offer cooler bags, for the summertime. We offer bags you can put ice in and keep your drinks in, things like that for camping and hiking, all kinds of different stuff. And we're looking at adding, potentially about 30 more SKUs this year.
Awesome.
So a lot of growth, a lot of development. And I actually just made a post last night on Facebook, basically asking our fans, what do you want to see from us?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the companies exist only because of the people that buy the products. And so we created that post, and we got a lot of great feedback, a lot of great suggestions, and we're going to take those into high consideration and see if we can't put some of those on the market.
Awesome. So you held up the backpack earlier. Let's bring that back up here and chat on that a little bit. Yeah. I know I used to fish as a co-angler on the BFL series, and I could never find a backpack that worked for me. I'm assuming you probably had some influence in the design in this coming from the bass background?
Yep. So I also was a co-angler in the BFL series here in Wisconsin, and you're right. It's extremely difficult to find a bag that allows you to narrow down all of your tackle and keep everything in a bag. And so when we went into designing this bag, that you don't want to make your boater upset, because
absolutely.
The guy that walks in with the big duffel bag, the boater's like, come on, dude, really?
Yeah, I was watching a video just this morning. It was Mike, it was Going Ike, his newest one, when he fishes with Jared Swindell, and he shows up and G-Man pulls up and Ike's got like 10 rods, 2 bags, and he goes, come on, Ike, you're the worst co-angler ever. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, now I understand why these guys do this, because I didn't have my boat, didn't have my equipment. He goes, well, we got this weather, that weather. And he's like, next thing I know, I got 10 rods and 4 bags to bring with me.
You feel empty if you don't have all your gear with you. So the main thought about this bag was to really develop something where you could get everything in here. So you got your sunglasses, you got pouches for your plastics on the sides. Yeah. You got enough space in here where you can fit your boxes in.
Okay.
Now what makes this bag a little bit unique, and you probably won't be able to see this on the camera, but what we do is we have an ability to actually convert this bag to be used with smaller boxes here in the front. Yep. But there's actually drop-down ceiling here, so you can only put boxes down here in the bottom, but still be able to store products up top. Okay. But that drop-down ceiling can also be folded in.
And then you can do your 3700s in the tall way. Okay.
Yep, exactly. Nice. So it's a very versatile bag. It's great for co-anglers. It's great for kayakers, or like I said, anybody who's backpacking through the woods to get to a secret spot or anything like that.
Yeah, you got nice compartments on the side for the bags, like you said. Throw your drink here, and even this. I mean, you could, I guess, throw pliers in there if you really needed to, but you can strap something onto, like those pliers there come with the little strap. You can just strap them right on there, whatever.
A lot of different options.
Accessible.
And another big thing that I was talking to the guys about, because, I live in the country, so I like to backpack into trout streams and things like that. And one of the things that really sucks is if you're wearing a backpack that is uncomfortable. So on the back here, I'll show you guys, you can see there's kind of an ergonomic design that fits the contours of your back going from your shoulder blades down to your kidneys.
Yeah.
And so we designed that specifically so that when you're walking back a mile or 2 miles, by the end of that, you're not like, oh man, my back is killing me, you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that ergonomic design really helps with the comfort of using the bag.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good one, like you said, for bank fishermen, co-anglers, stuff like that. I mean, easy to keep on and be able to throw everything in, get going.
Yep. So. And we're actually working on developing a series of bags right now that are actually a little bit more specific to co-anglers.
Okay.
They're going to be designed specifically to the rear compartment of most bass boats on average, and leave enough space for them to kind of get everything in there. So we're working on that right now.
That's awesome. I may have to chat with you on that after this. 'Cause I had wanted to design something similar because that was something I ran into, and there's a lot of things that companies don't make, and bags have come far in the last 3 years, but I might have to see what you got going and put some input in on that.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I mean, thanks for showing off all the products and everything. I know you're a big fisherman, and this winter I've seen you chatting a lot about ice fishing online, and looks like you might have some content coming from the company page or your own page. But how did your season go ice fishing wise?
You know, unfortunately here in Wisconsin, we've had one of the worst ice condition years that we've had in 30 years. I mean, lots of reports of fisheries being canceled and tournaments being canceled. So, I mean, even overseas in Europe, it's kind of crazy. They had to cancel the USA Olympic ice fishing competition.
Really? I didn't hear that.
Because they just had no good ice. So it's kind of been a struggle here in Wisconsin and really in the Midwest in general. If it wasn't a lack of ice, it was too much snow and too much slush. And for the guys in southern Wisconsin, no ice at all.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit of a struggle, but we've kind of persevered. You know, you go to the areas that you know are going to be fishable. And you try to target those as much as possible. But it's fun, you know, being able to do a lot of videography and a lot of fishing. I kind of get to pick and choose my days, which allows me to maybe get out a little bit more than the average guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is nice. But yeah, it's been a good season overall. I'm looking forward to open water though.
So how does the balance go for you between your job as the U.S. director and fishing? Obviously, I'm guessing they want you to produce content, so you need to be out on the water. What would you say your average week percentage-wise in the quote-unquote office versus being outdoors doing stuff for the company? What's kind of that breakdown for you?
That is a great question. And, you know, when I was considering whether or not I was going to take this position, I talked to some friends in the fishing industry, some guides that are full-time, and some folks that work for companies. And basically I asked them, I said, you know, tell me what your days are like and how this is going to go. And they said, flat out, you're going to fish less than you do now. And I didn't believe that was possible. I'm like, guys, they're asking me to shoot videos. Like, my life is going to be outside fishing. That's what I'm going to do. And so I took the position, and you know, it turns out they were right. I actually fish less now than I did before. Yep. And I think it was because before when I left work, That was kind of it. And I just went and did what I wanted to do, fishing and hunting wise. Now I'm almost always tethered. You know, something's always got me tethered to the business, which I'm not complaining by any means. It is well worth the opportunity, and it's fantastic. A typical, you know, week for me would probably contain 2 days of editing for film. Guys, if you ever want to, you know, break out a GoPro and start filming your fishing, I would highly recommend understanding the backside of that part, because that's the tough part. You know, the filming and capturing, you know, is a challenge in itself. But when you have to sit down for 5 hours and put it all together and make it work, believe me, I have a high respect for folks who shoot television shows.
Oh yeah, I was just chatting with a guy like 2 days ago that's on the pro staff that I run, and he's like, yeah, I've got like 3 years of footage on my computer. And I'm like, well, he's like, I want to do something with it. I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
He's like, it's easy to film it, but it's tough to get back in and do all the editing.
Absolutely.
So you look at some of these YouTubers that do this stuff, and like Lunkers TV, he went, I think 2 years ago, every day with a video.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
That's insane.
Coming home, then he puts his daughter to bed, and then sits up till 1 a.m. and edits a video just so it's out for you for the next day.
He's out the next day to do it.
That's just unreal. I couldn't imagine the dedication that would take.
That's a great point, because, you know, what I've seen a lot now is, you know, a lot of people in the tournament world have almost like this chip on their shoulder for the YouTubers, the fishing YouTubers. And, you know, the reality is those guys put in a ton of work doing what they do. And that's why they get a lot of views, because people come to respect what it takes to be able to do those things. And not everyone is able to do it. And that's true. So it's cool to see it. And it definitely is a lot of work for sure.
And I mean, the lot of the work part, look at Scott Martin. He hired Brandon and now just hired a second guy just to do his filming and editing and everything.
Yep.
And I'm sure like Brandon Belat's not far behind him, I would guess. He's doing it all himself, but he's had some hiring a filming and stuff, but I think he's going to get to the point where he's going to have to be done editing because he's growing exponentially.
Right, and you almost have to if you want to be able to get content out. You almost have to have some sort of assistant or someone else who's contributing to some part of the work.
Yeah.
There's just not enough time in a day, especially if you have a family, to be able to kind of do it all on your own. So
because it's one thing just throw a GoPro video of you fishing, like anybody can do that. That's old G-Man videos. You go on his page and it's him just skipping docks and whatever. But now his videos have come along because he said someone help him produce it. They're getting the B-roll, doing all that, because that's stuff a lot of people don't think of.
Right.
Like, I can throw a GoPro on the back of my boat and go get you fish catches all day. But what about you're fishing by yourself or having the B-roll of you pulling the fish out of the water? That's what the people want to see in the views.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, the hook sets are cool, but you also need to be able to have that B-roll and the good footage of it. So,
my daughter's 11 years old and she loves to fish. She's fished her whole life. And so when I took this job, it was kind of difficult explaining to her, what I'm doing. And so I'm like, well, summer comes. She's, summer vacation. And I'm like, well, I'm going to work today. I'm going to film.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, can I come with you? And I'm like, it's not what you think it is. We're not going out and just having a blast and catching fish. And she's like, Dad, just let me come. So, all right, you can come. So I bring her along with me, and I did put her to work. I gave her a camera and kind of had her do some things, but I brought her with me. And she's like, Dad, this isn't that fun. And I'm like, well, it's a little different when you're going out and you're putting camera work in. You're moving a rod or a reel 20 times to get the perfect shot to show it off versus sitting there and having a blast jacking largemouth all day long. So it's definitely quite a bit different. But again, no complaints. Still insanely fun. I can't complain. I'm still on the water.
Yep.
But it's definitely different than what people think it is. I would say that for sure.
So I know we've chatted before a lot about bass fishing. Is that your first love in the industry, in the fishing side of things, or what really got you into fishing? How long have you been fishing your whole life? Or
Sure. So I've been fishing pretty much since I could hold a fishing pole. Started when I was about 2 or 3 years old up north on a family lake and just catching bluegills off of a dock. The traditional Wisconsin fisherman story. And I've been fishing my entire life for, all different species. But when I was 21, I was stationed down in Texas.
Okay.
And I saw that there was a soldier fishing tournament. And essentially what they do is they pair a soldier up with, some level of pro, and you guys go out and compete.
Okay.
Well, I did this tournament. We ended up taking third out of 150 boats or something like that. And I'm like, insane adrenaline high. This is the coolest thing ever. And after that, I was hooked. It was like, I'm not even ashamed to say I went like 10 grand in credit card debt. I'm like, I'm buying rods, I'm buying reels, I'm buying all this tackle, and I just went nuts, full tilt, and it really hasn't stopped since. It's just been, what am I doing in fishing versus, not fishing. It's just been, full tilt ever since then.
So what background, you mentioned you did the BFLs before. What other tournament series have you done? Did you do ACs or anything like that? Because you were southeast Wisconsin for a while, correct?
Yep. So initially, when I started the tournament stuff, I was actually in Texas for 4 years of it. So I was fishing like, Tournament of Champions, Fishers of Men, some Angler's Choice stuff down that way. And so I was doing a lot of that stuff, and then like local ABA tournaments. And then when I moved up here, I honestly moved up here not realizing how much bass fishing was in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Because I left, when I was 18, came back when I was 24, and I actually ended up buying a deep V aluminum boat because I'm like, I'm going to walleye and salmon fish, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, there's a lot of bass fishing in Wisconsin. And then I kind of shifted gears. I'm like, well, I'm going back to bass then. So, I did a little bit of Wapta, a little bit of Angler's Choice. Spent 4 years fishing the BFLs in the Mississippi River Division.
Did you do that all as a co for the BFLs, or did you do some as a boater?
I did all as a co. Yep. And I was actually just getting to the point, the next season I was going to swap over to the boater. And then Piscifun called me and said, hey, we have a full-time job in the fishing industry for you. And like I said, it's time consuming. So unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of time for tournaments at the moment. But I do hope to get back to it soon, though.
Awesome. How did you do as a co over there? Because I know I've done it. It was a big learning experience. I feel like every year I took a step. And my first year, I didn't realize how lucky I got with my draws my first year.
Yeah.
Where if I could have had those draws my third and fourth year, I would have made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like I got drawn with a couple good local sticks for each tournament. For the first, I started in July, missed the very first one in April, but I did the June in Winnebago, and then the July one in La Crosse, then Prairie du Chien, and then the Super. And it's like can't remember all their names, but I know looking back, I'm like, man, if I could have had those draws. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
for me, when I first started, I think my first tournament was in 2012 on Winnebago. And I think I took 12th or something like that, and had a great time, learned a lot. So this is what I would say. If you're looking to get into tournament fishing, go as a co-angler first.
Yeah.
It teaches you exponentially so much more than you will ever learn as a boater in those tournaments. And it's not about taking someone's fishing spots or any of that stuff, but it's about learning timing on the water, when to move spots, how to make decisions on the water.
Absolutely.
That exponentially helped me in terms of tournament fishing. And I'm kind of up and down. I had quite a bit of success as a co-angler. I think I had 2 first places, a 3rd place. I had quite a few top 10s in the 14 tournaments that I fished. And I had it both ways. I had some boaters that weren't, as good as some of the other guys, which allowed me to clean up behind them. They were around fish, but maybe not the most talented. And so I was able to catch good limits behind them. And then I've also had great boaters that were so good, it was tough to fish behind them. So if we're flipping wood, this guy's flipping this tree 60 times, and I'm kind of left with leftovers. So it's such a crapshoot. Basically what I tell co-anglers, don't go in expecting anything. Go in expecting to learn, have a good day on the water, and it's super cost effective for you to compete.
Yeah.
So go out there.
And be respectful, because
and that's a huge
you can have guys, I fished with a guy, I drew him, and everyone's like, you're going to hate your life. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you're never going to catch a fish behind him.
Yeah.
I cashed a check that tournament.
Yep.
I was respectful to him. He allowed me to make certain casts
after.
Opened
up water for you.
If he's culling, hey, make that cast if you can, but if you catch one, I'm just going to ask you to, that'll be the one.
Yep.
And then move on. And I was culling by 8:30 that morning. I had never called that early in a tournament.
Yeah.
And it was just like, if you can be respectful to those guys and not cast in front of them, not cause them, if you hook up I've seen some guys, they'll be like, oh, well, I asked my boater to go back and get my whopper plopper. It's $15.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
Break it off.
Yep, I agree.
Like, just don't make him go back and get it.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it. And some other people are like, well, I don't know, I need that lure back. And it's like, no, just be respectful of the guy, because he's the one who was there all week, Monday through Friday, pre-fishing, finding spots.
Absolutely.
And if you get a local guy, they know it, and they just go and do it, and they'll go check their spots a couple days before. But some of these guys come from a while away.
Other states, yeah.
I mean, the guy that I roomed with a lot was from the other side of Iowa, and he drove across the state and would show up on Thursday, fish Thursday, Friday.
Yep.
I'd go out and help him pre-fish and stuff, and then, he'd go find the stuff that he wanted. Then the co-angler would come along, and the first tournament I ever fished with him, it was funny. He had never caught a pike on a frog.
Wow.
And I'm
that's
like,
impressive.
that's normal. No, it's not. I never catch him. He goes, you jinxed me. I caught 1 bass and 15 pike all day. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
That's a sad day.
But yeah, you just got to be respectful, because they put the time and the money in. Like you said, super cost effective. If you want to go and have a good time, you can be a marshal in the Elite Series and pay $175 to sit and watch someone.
Right.
Or you can pay $125 as a co-angler in the BFL and get to fish and watch someone.
Yep.
Yeah, they might not all guys are going to be the level of every Elite Series angler, but it's better than sitting there and watching, I guess.
Yeah. It's really about the experience. And one thing I would recommend too, before you go into the co-angling, arena, talk to some boaters and get an understanding of what kind of costs they have. I think it's a lot easier to swallow handing a guy $50 in gas at the end of the day when you realize that he spent almost $2,000 in the week that he was there pre-fishing on gas and hotels and all that good stuff. So do a little bit of research and kind of talk to some guys and see how much they're actually investing in these tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I guess that's kind of going to wrap up our time here with you. We appreciate you coming in, unless there's anything else you want to touch base on. I know you want to do a giveaway on the hat there.
Yeah.
So we'll probably think of something here in a couple minutes to, have people share their podcast or whatever, and we'll get that given away to someone.
Awesome.
And get that sent out. So I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony.
Hopefully have you on again soon as the podcast grows, and kind of go with, when you get new products and stuff, we can always rearrange and get you back on for, product announcements or whatever you want to do. So
sounds good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. It was an honor to be here, Tony.
Absolutely.
Make sure you guys tune in for future podcasts. He's going to have a lot of great folks out here. Make sure you check out the Piscifun website, and also go subscribe to us on YouTube. Lots of cool videos out there, and we appreciate all the support. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jason.
All right.
So yeah, just want to remind you guys that the podcast is sponsored by The Real Shot. So if you guys want to go and support them, head over to their website. They've got a lot of ice fishing stuff on sale. They have a sale going up to 20% off. They want to emphasize the up to, not everything is, but a lot of good deals on there. So go over there and check them out. You can come in store. They've got same-day shipping and for certain areas here right in the valley. So if you need anything, hop over to the website and support The Real Shot for supporting this podcast. I'd greatly appreciate it. So next segment of the show, we're going to go on to one of the things I really like chatting on, and that is fantasy fishing for the Bassmaster Elite Series. So they have a tournament starting tomorrow on the St. Johns River in Florida. The way fantasy fishing works, if a lot of people didn't know, it's very similar to how you can do, I guess you could say, daily baseball or football fantasy stuff. So each tournament, you're going to have 3 different buckets of anglers to choose from. The first tournament of the year is always a little more difficult just because bucket A is always going to be your higher finishers in the ALY from the year before. And bucket E down there is usually your rookies, the newcomers to the Elite Series, because they haven't had history with the Bassmaster Elite Series. So if you haven't done it, you can go right over to bassmasterfantasy.com. It's free to sign up. There's multiple different groups in there that you can join. A lot of them, if you do well, they're going to send out free tackle and different prizes for you. But it's free to sign up. Rapala is actually the title sponsor this year, and they put a ton of money into it this year to give away a lot of cool prizes overall. And again, the different groups, you can log in and be able to see what different groups there are. I'm in a couple that give away some free prizes. AFCO, if you finish top whatever, they're going to give away some prizes. Big Bite Baits, Denali Rods, Sunline, Spro, Omega Custom Tackle. A lot of different groups on there. You can even create your own, so if you want to battle with your friends. My buddy Nick and I did it last year. We do it each year and just make a head-to-head bracket and just kind of see how we do throughout the year. So, but basically assembling your team, like I said earlier, you have the 5 different buckets, A through E. You can choose one angler from each of those buckets. Going through the buckets there, they're going to give you percentages. If you're on the actual website platform on your desktop computer, you'll be able to see the percentages of what other anglers are choosing. When you're done choosing your anglers, you're going to be setting a tiebreaker. So the tiebreaker is what you think the winning weight is going to be, the closest to the winning weight. And then going through at the end of the tournament, if you happen to end up tying with someone for first or whatever place you're going to be, they're going to be saying that it's based off of the closest to your tie-breaking weight. So each tournament you log in, choose your different buckets. So the first bucket, like I said earlier, bucket A is probably the toughest one to pick out of the entire year, is on the first tournament, just because it's all the guys that finished in the top last year. So this year, I'm just going to go through each time we have one of these tournaments and go through what my picks are, and then other anglers that might be a good pick there. Back on to the point where I said they have the percentage owned. Sometimes you don't always want to have the highest percentage owned because a lot of other people are going to get those same points. So each angler, based on their finish, and if they have big bass for the day, and I think they just added a big bag for the day, you get an additional bonus as well. So finish top 35, you get a bonus. Finish top 10, you get a bonus. And then points get added up from there. So bucket A right now, John Cox is in bucket A just because of his Bassmaster background in the Open Series. So he's not necessarily going to go to bucket E, even though he is technically a quote-unquote rookie, but based on his winnings and everything in his history with Bassmaster, he was eligible to be in bucket A. Right now, I don't think there's anyone that anyone can pick against John Cox. This tournament's right in his backyard, right in the St. Johns River, out of Palatka, Florida. He's fresh off a win on the new FLW Pro Circuit over on Sam Rayburn. The man is a shallow water specialist. He always finishes well in Florida. I think he's the all hands-down favorite to win the whole thing, if not give you a top 10 for good points in fantasy. If I didn't pick John Cox, I would probably go with either Drew Cook or Rick Clunn. Drew Cook is the reigning Rookie of the Year. He is from Midway, Florida. Last year he took 18th here on the St. Johns River. And out of percentage-wise, he's technically, I guess you could consider him a sleeper. Usually guys that are from the area do well. Drew Cook comes in at 2.6% owned. I usually say anything under 3.5%, I would consider a sleeper because he's not on a lot of people's radars. Rick Clunn, as most people have probably known, he won it the last 2 years in a row on the St. Johns River for the Bassmaster Elite Series. Rick Clunn is the ageless wonder. The man, I think, he beat his own record because he was the oldest to win 2 years ago and then won again a year later, and now he's the oldest. So can he pull off the three-peat at the St. John's River? He's the man who probably could. He's probably one of the greatest of all time when people talk about it. He could definitely go and win it a third time in a row. Last year, he missed the century mark at 100 pounds for the whole tournament by less than 2 pounds, so the man can flat out fish. Last one in Bucket A that I want to touch on that's a total sleeper is Lee Livesey. So Lee Livesey was a rookie last year on the Elite Series. He comes in at under 1% owned, at 0.9% owned. He finished 6th here last year. So I think he's going to come back with an easy top 10. I shouldn't say easy, but I think he's going to be in a top 10, top 15 with a chance to be there on the final day and be able to win it. He had the catch of the year last year, arguably. I don't think there was a better catch. He landed a fish over the backside of a cement dock. I don't remember leading up to it if he purposely cast over as a miscast and he happened to hook up with him, but he essentially was laying over the top of a dock and being able to, or laying on his boat. The fish is dangling on the other side of the dock, and he's using his rod with loose line trying to get the fish to coax toward him. Easily the catch of the year. The man can catch big fish. Just because he's from Texas doesn't mean he can't fish in Florida. So, again, my pick here, John Cox. You can't bet against the man right now. He's probably hands down the best, hottest angler in the country. Moving on to Bucket B. There's a lot of good anglers in here. The two that stand out the most to most people, especially for percentage owned, is Brandon Polinick and Jared Swindell, G-Man. They're both coming back to the Elite Series after a year over at the MLF BPT Series. That's been a big hot topic and hot button of the industry lately, is those two guys buying out their contract and coming back to the Bassmasters. That's where they were happy. I've got 4 names down here. Just based off percentages, Gerald Swindell and Brandon Polinick are both at 21.8 and 22%. BP is probably the fan favorite in this bucket. As much as I love BP, he's probably my favorite angler. I just can't pick him in Florida. He's inconsistent down there. It would be awesome, and it'd be an awesome story to see him come back to the Bassmasters and win it right away. I just don't see him pulling it off. I hope he proves me wrong for the sake of being a fan of BP, but I just can't pick him in my fantasy bucket here. Gerald Swindell is going to be my pick in this bucket. He is fresh off of a top 10 top 10 finish on the Kissimmee chain in the Bassmaster Open Eastern Series. The man has always done well down in Florida, and that would be one of the best stories out there to see him come back just like BP and win it. I just think out of this bucket, he is probably the best pick. If you didn't want to go with a higher percentage guy and you wanted to drop down a little bit for someone to get some more points that people might not necessarily get as a whole, John Cruz would probably be my pick there. He comes in at 13.1% owned. He weighed in the biggest fish of the tournament last year and finished 5th. He is from Virginia. He knows Florida very, very well. John's a very good angler and been with the Elite Series for a long time. And if you're looking for a sleeper pick in this one, I didn't see any of the pundits pick this one, but I'm going to throw Chad Pipkins out there as the sleeper pick. He is 0.5% owned. He is a northern fisherman from Michigan. But I think, honestly, he's probably the most underrated angler on the tour, in my opinion. He can just catch him about everywhere. He's always consistent. You never see him really tank a tournament. So Bucket B, I can see him easily finishing in the top 30. Yeah, you probably have a little more upside with the higher percentages, but if he does go and finish higher, you're going to have a better points total overall. Moving on to Bucket C. My top pick and my pick in this one is going to be Hunter Shryock. He is not the highest percentage owned in this one. I think he's second or third highest. Hunter is, in my opinion, a steal in Bucket C. He always places well and is in the hunt for a final day when bass comes down to Florida. He can grass fish with the best of them. He's a great sight fisherman. He definitely breaks down the bodies of water down there. 2 years ago when he was on the Eastern Opens, he finished 3rd down in Florida. He broke off 2 fish on the final day that probably would have won it for him to give him his first one. So I really think this could be his tournament. I think this could be the time that he breaks through and gets his first elite win. And that way if you have him in bucket C and he wins, I think he's going to definitely catapult you up the standings. The fan favorite right now, percentage owned wise, is Brandon Cobb at 37.6% owned. He can flat out catch him anywhere. He's no stranger to finding big fish. You can look at what he did at the Texas Bass Fest last year on Lake Fork. He caught his personal best, over 10 pounds, during that Bass Fest event. Brandon's a great angler, younger angler. He's from South Carolina, so it's not hard for him to go down to Florida and pre-fish and get everything going. He's probably one of the favorites this year to maybe win AOY, be Angler of the Year. But I still think with Hunter in this bucket, you can't, in my opinion, can't pick a better pick than Hunter. The other fan favorite is a local Florida guy, Colby Krieger, at 14% owned. He's just a local fan favorite. He's fished well down in Florida for many tournaments. He is kind of up and down, though, in the Bassmaster finishes down in Florida, though. Moving on to Bucket D. I've got two anglers to highlight. Bucket D, no one really stood out to me that jumped off the page that I wanted to point out. So I'm personally going to go with the fan favorite in this one, Steve Kennedy. Steve Kennedy has been around the Bassmaster Elite Series forever. He's always done good in Florida. You can go back and watch old Bass events, FLW events, and when they're in Florida, he's always done well. He's an excellent grass fisherman. He knows his way around the Florida bodies of water very, very well. I'm just going to play it safe in Bucket D and choose Steve Kennedy. If I didn't go with him, I think my next pick would have to be a local Florida guy, either Bernie Schultz or Jesse Tecarante. Bernie's been very consistent down that way. He's from Gainesville, Florida. He's been around for a long time as well, just like Steve Kennedy. And Jesse Tecarante seems to be a guy that puts very two good days together and then can't finish out the tournament. Maybe this is the year he can break it through. He's coming off his first full year back after a medical exemption, probably in better shape. But I couldn't pick him, even though it looks like he's the third favorite percentage owned in here, just because it seems like he always puts 2 good days together, tanks the third day, doesn't make the cut on the fourth day. So Steve Kennedy is my pick there. Moving on to Bucket E, again, I mentioned earlier, this is usually reserved for a lot of the rookies to the field. There's a lot of big names in this field here that aren't necessarily rookies. They moved over from FLW. You've got Austin Felix from Minnesota in here. You've got David Fritz. You've got Rod Dye. You've got Wes Logan. A lot of bigger names down here. Buddy Gross, again, Bucket E, 43% owned. That's the highest percentage owned out of any angler in any bucket. Again, I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to choose Buddy Gross. Buddy Gross does not belong in this bucket. This will be the only week you'll be able to pick him in this bucket. He will easily move up after this one. He is going to, I think he's a lock for a top 5. He won last year on the FLW Pro Circuit down on Toho. Beat out a lot of Florida anglers on that one. Scott Martin was in the running for that one. Buddy Gross is just a hammer. He can catch them down there. I think he took 5th in ALY for FLW last year, so he had a very, very good finish. Again, play it safe. If you want to go out and swing for the fences in Bucket E, which a lot of people do like to do as part of their strategy, I think the guy that you have to do that with is a Wisconsin native, Caleb Kufal. If Buddy wasn't in this bucket right now, I would choose Caleb. He's an excellent grass fisherman. Yes, he's a rookie on the Elite Series, but I'm looking to see him make a splash in the Elites this year. Like I said, he's a local Wisconsin guy. As ironic as it is, he is actually his title sponsor is Piscifun, who is just in the studio here earlier, so kind of a relevant one there to talk about. But I think Caleb would be the other guy if you want to go and try to make a splash in Bucket E to get points that other people wouldn't. He's at 1.2% owned. So hop back over here to the live feed, see if anyone has any questions here. Nick says Bernie will win this one, so I know who Nick's picking in Bucket D. But yeah, so I just appreciate everyone coming on to be able to view the first podcast, the Professional Overrun, a fishing podcast sponsored by The Real Shot. Next week we'll be live again at 11 a.m. again here on Facebook. We'll also be over on YouTube. And then after the show is all done, we'll be throwing everything out to iTunes and Spotify as well. Next week's guest is not solidified yet. We'll definitely be getting someone on either Skype or in studio. I'm working on solidifying a guest for next week. 2 weeks from now, the third podcast, we're going to be talking everything muskie fishing. We're going to have a gentleman on by the name of Mike Darley. He is with one of the Minnesota chapters of Muskie Inc. He's a good friend of mine and happens to be a colleague with the company I work with, and that's how I kind of got linked up with him to be able to have him come on and talk muskie fishing. So I know really nothing about it other than it's the fish of 10,000 casts. So we'll be on here asking a lot of beginner questions when we do have him on. But yeah, subscribe to the YouTube Professional Overrun podcast page. Follow us here on Facebook. Make sure you go over and give The Real Shot a thumbs up as well for sponsoring the podcast. Go support them on their website. Again, they have an ice fishing sale right now up to 20% off. Go support them for supporting us and allowing us to get this podcast off the ground. So if anyone has any questions or wants to be a guest on the show or has things they want me to cover on the show, make sure you send me an email. Our email is going to be professionaloverrunpod@gmail.com. I'll be taking all requests over there, so if there's a show, a type of fishing you want to hear about, a certain guest you might want to have in to talk about that species of fishing, or just a topic in general, make sure all inquiries go over to that mailbox and we'll be able to get everything going there. So again, signing off, Tony Malika, Professional Overrun Podcast, and thank you guys all for listening. We'll see you next week.